to be this way. Just count the hours, 'cause when your bed is made, then baby it's too late. Yeah, there's no hope for a hungry child whose joker is wild. They take all hope away, and by the end of the day, well, I just about had enough of the sunshine. Hey, what did I hear you say? You know it doesn't have to be that way. When you walk out the door, you gotta ask for more. You gotta ask for more. It doesn't have to hurt that way. Just count the pain. You've only got yourselves to blame for playing the game. There's no hope for the hungry child whose joker is wild, and they take all hope away, and I just can't see the sense of my mind's ahead. And I just about had enough of this sunshine. Hey, what did I hear you say? You know it doesn't have to be that way. When you walk out the door, baby, you gotta ask for more. From society, take a tip from me now. Yeah. For the sunshine, hey, what did I hear you say? Oh, you know it doesn't have to be that way. When you walk out the door, ooh, you better ask for more, baby, baby, baby. Hey,
Welcome to The Great Conversation, the home of great conversations with your favourite artists of the 70s, 80s and 90s. This is where we get to catch up with what they're doing right now in their lives and careers before taking a deep dive into their most meaningful musical memories. So tonight, as you'll have gathered from our opening track, It Doesn't Have to Be That Way, which got to number 5 in 1987, tonight's special guest is from the Blow Monkeys. What a pleasure and indeed delight to welcome back to The Great Conversation, Dr. Robert.
Hi, Jackie. How you doing?
Oh, I'm great. Thank you. Very nice to speak to you again. I think it's been 2-3 years since we last caught up.
Probably, yeah. Yeah, nice to speak to you too.
I think the last time I spoke to you, you were living in Spain and had done for quite a while. Is that still the case?
That's still the case. Yeah, still here.
Oh, how lovely. How lovely. How is life in Spain?
Well, it's extremely hot right now, I've got to say. The last few years, it's got super hot in the summer. Like, it's really changed. So you feel like it's really quite hardcore. But I'm not really complaining. But, I've been here nearly 25 years now, but the band still live in London and my kids live in London. So I'm back and forward a lot.
Well, listen, much to talk about. I mean, you are prolific anyway with work with your, with your own endeavors and with other people's projects. But you've got a brand new album coming out, Birdsong. To launch that in a performance mode, you've got a big tour planned around the UK coming up in October.
Yeah, we're going out with our fellow soul socialist contingent, the Christians. That's the band, not the religious movement.
Okay.
And so we've known them for a long time, so that's going to be fun. We'll sort of swap headline nights, but obviously when we play Liverpool, they're headlining. When we play London, we're headlining. But apart from that, we go on really well, so it should be a good show,
Is that quite unusual to sort of have that agreement from the get-go? Because I guess the traditional thing would be someone's the headline for every gig, someone's the support at every gig. You know, everyone knows the deal, but this sounds like there's, you know, it's very equitable.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of all the ego stuff that you kind of drop really as you get older. It's not really important. I mean, the main thing is to do a good show, and we get on with them. We've done lots of gigs. I mean, I've got a feeling we'll probably headline most of them because I think they like to go to bed earlier. but apart from that, it's not really about that. It's just putting on a good show, and I think there's a crossover with the audiences. So, you know, looking forward to it.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I guess you have to kind of choose carefully if you're going to do something like this. Obviously, you're kind of at an earlier stage in your career, put on somebody else's tour, and you might not have a whole lot of say in it at the beginning of your career. But you have to choose carefully to make sure that you do get those.
Yeah, when we started out, we toured with a lot of very inappropriate bands, like the Sisters of Mercy, and you know, I mean, I don't know why, but they thought we were goth when we started out, and it was pretty obvious that we weren't. So
I was going to say, I'd love to hear the explanation behind that decision.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how it went over because I could never see the audience because there was so much dry ice, even in the sound check. But I mean, I got on well with them as people, but musically we were miles apart. So yeah, I mean, you know, you got to have something in common, I think, and we do, I think. So it should be a good night.
Before you point the finger, I hope the whole thing disappears. Remember, empty words will fall upon the deafest ears. You won't give in without a fight, and foul play without a doubt. No silver lining to be seen in this thundercloud. Oh, that's not allowed in the ideal world. We'd be free to choose, but in my real world, oh, you can bet we're gonna lose. Your money fills their pockets, fear fills their tiny minds. At last the world is talking now. This ain't no way to treat mankind. A sudden blackout stops the show, but doesn't stop the way I am. 'Cause all my life I've been oppressed. You're not the first to say I am. I do all I can for an ideal world where we're free to choose. But in my real world, oh, you can bet we're gonna lose. In the ideal world, we can start again. But my real world depends on the color of your skin. We could be free forever if they would only change. But rules never change. Speckle blue up in the sky, a song of hope and noble thought. But how long must the people die before the guilty ones are caught? Or will you spare a thought for an ideal world where we're free to choose? For an ideal world we're no longer born to lose. In the ideal world we can start again. Now in my real world, let's put an end to suffering. And suffering. In the ideal world, where I'm free to choose. Oh, in my real world, we are safe to air our views.
Ideal World from the Christians, heading out on a double-header tour across the UK with the Blow Monkeys in October. Dr. Robert of the Blow Monkeys is our special guest. So let's talk about the new album then, Robert. It's called Birdsong, and you've done it on Alan McGee's new label. Alan McGee, of course, started the legendary Creation Records label that launched many bands, not least of which, of course, was Oasis. So how did that partnership with Alan come about?
I've got a neighbour up here where I live, in the sort of mountains just south of Granada in Andalusia, Spain. Youth, who's a producer, used to be bass player in Killing Joke and all that, but he's a big time producer, and I often just pop into his studio for a cup of tea. And I did that one day, and Alan McGee was sitting there at the table, and I've met Alan before, but we didn't really know each other that well. And as is my one, I sort of picked up the acoustic guitar and just started playing stuff, and he started calling out numbers for me to play. And I'm quite good at that because I used to busk as a teenager. So that's what started out, and he's called out some obscure Mark Bolan song. Of course, that's why out my street, So, and from that point, I think a light bulb went on in his head, and he said, would you make a new Blow Monkeys album for his label, Creation Youth? And to be honest, we just put one out last year, Together Alone, on Last Night from Glasgow. So I kind of just was exhausted from that, but I couldn't let that go. And I thought, I kind of know what he means, I know what he's after. So the songs came real quick, we went down to Paul Weller's studio near Woking there and recorded it real quick. And I'm really happy with how it kind of came out.
I'm gonna check my motivation. I ain't never gonna stop. I know there's been some complications, all about the hidden costs. I'm gonna take that road to nowhere. I don't mind if I get lost, and it's a two-way conversation. But I can't remember where I was until the penny drops. Until the penny drops. Till the penny drops. Until the penny drops. I'm taking up my new position. I'm pulling out all of the stops. So take a good look in the mirror until that mask you're wearing drops. I'm gonna drive out to the desert and gaze upon the midnight sky. I'm crawling long just like a king snake while you're buzzing like a fly. Until the penny drops. Until the penny drops. Till the penny drops. Until the penny drops.
That's The Penny Drops, the new single from the new album just released by the Blow Monkeys called Birdsong. And we will be back to take a deep dive into the earliest musical influences of our special guest, Dr. Robert, as our great conversation continues next on Greatest Hits Radio.
Greatest Hits Radio. Across the UK.
This is Greatest Hits Radio. Sound like this. Greatest Hits Radio.
Welcome back to the great conversation with Jackie Brambles and tonight's special guest, Dr. Robert of the Blow Monkeys, who have a new album called Birdsong, just released, and a UK tour alongside the Christians kicking off early October. Let's go back and trace the roots of your musical evolution as an artist then, Robert, and go way back to, when you were a kid. What kinds of music would you have been absorbing around you as a very small child?
Well, it would have been the 60s. I've got two sisters, 10 years and 11 years older than me, who would bought every Beatles single. I knew the Beatles as a singles band. In fact, when people say, Dr. Robert, did you get it from Revolver? I didn't even know that until years later.
Oh, really?
I only kind of knew the Beatles through the singles, because my sisters bought every single.
Right.
And so they went through the whole thing. My mum was a young mum too, so she was very much into kind of soul music. Her thing would have been Ella Fitzgerald, Sarah Vaughan, and then things like Aretha. And there was also a lot of kind of Bacharach and David kind of stuff floating about in the house. And my own memories of just listening to, helping my dad wallpaper a bedroom, listening to Puppet on a String or something like that would have come on the radio around about mid-60s. So I was kind of, passively absorbing a lot of pop music through that time, yeah.
I wonder if one day that you say that you care. If you say you love me madly, I gladly be there like a puppet on a string.
When you did get a little bit older and you could save up your pocket money or, your money your dad gave you for wallpapering and you could go down the record shop. Do you have a clear memory of what you went for first time around?
Yeah, I mean, it would have been, like a lot of people my age, it would have been Mark Bolan.
Yeah,
I think Bolan was the one. People talk about Bowie, but I think Bolan got there first. And I remember kind of going on a school trip as a kind of 10-year-old and hearing Jeepster coming out of a jukebox.
Right.
When we stopped. And I just think, and I was transfixed by that. And then it would have been somewhere around the time of Metal Guru, they reissued Deborah by Tyrannosaurus Rex.
Yeah.
I was totally entranced by this kind of Larry the Lamb. I thought it was a geezer, to be honest, I thought it was a Mungo Jerry, because in the summertime had been out. And it's a similar kind of voice.
That's true. I can see that.
But then, so I bought that. That would have been the first one at this kind of record shop in Kings Lynn where I was living, godforsaken, Kings Lynn in Norfolk. And that would have been the first one. And I was transfixed by that. And the other tunes of it, the Seal of Seasons and Woodland Bop and things like that. So it seemed to me as a kind of, what would I have been, 10 or 11 years old, a completely magical world. And then, of course, catching him on top of the pops with Metal Guru. That was from where I was living, that looked like, well, where is that? What world is that? I want that. So
you felt like that was some kind of magical world and you'd like a piece of it.
Yeah. I had no idea that people like that existed and that a world like that existed. And so it completely transfixed me, really. And I've never really recovered.
I think I would culturally back then, that was so shocking for its time in terms of what had come before. Even the Beatles, as revolutionary as they were at the time, it wasn't particularly wild. They weren't sporting makeup and unusual clothes or anything like that. So do you have a sort of a sense of how jarring that was culturally, for the older generation around you? And was it talked about a lot when that sort of happened?
I felt a sense of embarrassment when my parents watched it with me. I knew that there was a generation gap opening here. He was a guy with makeup on who was very effeminate. And also this kind of Metal Guru, I mean, in particular, is just a great howl of sort of joy. I mean, it doesn't even make sense particularly, and yet it made complete sense to me as a young kid. It just was, so I would, to be fair, my parents would often just let me stay up and play records at night. And that was kind of a place that I would escape into. And of course, it led on to so many other things. But it was, there was the androgyny, I mean, there were kids at school that I had to watch out for. It was obvious that there were ones that were into Slade, and that was much more kind of macho. And I love Slade too, but Bolan seemed, and Bowie later, and Roxy and people, that was the beginning of what became a kind of, later on, the punk generation, which was my kind of generation.
You're gonna bring my baby to me. She'll be
From 1972, Metal Guru by T-Rex, a huge influence on the burgeoning musical brain of our special guest, Dr. Robert, as he grew up in Norfolk. But then you moved to Australia at some point, I think, didn't you? How did that come about, and what impact did that move have on your musical evolution?
My father died when I was 15, I think. And me and my mum went out there where my sister lived in Sydney. So that was like jumping from black and white, Kingsley, and into kind of Technicolor, like Sydney. And suddenly I'm living in a place where, this would have been 1977, where there were loads of music, loads of bands, you know. I mean, nobody ever came to Kingsley. And I think Wizard came once to play in the Corn Exchange. That was about it. So suddenly I was, you know, my whole world changed. And that's when I started playing and busking and going to music and saw loads of bands. I saw the Ramones. I saw, you know, everybody that would come. So it was a total change for me.
It's interesting because I think Australia can sometimes get a bad rap when it comes to, you know, music history.
Well, I thought that. Well, the first two bands I saw there, well, to be honest, the first band I ever saw, my sister took me to see Jethro Tull at the Holden Pavilion, which is a bit weird one. Guy standing on one leg playing a flute. It wasn't what I was into at the time. But then I saw an Australian band called The Saints. And then I saw a band called The Boys Next Door, which was an early version of The Birthday Party with Nick Cave. So they were both unbelievable bands. So I thought, wow, this isn't the backwater that I thought it was. This is unbelievable, you know. It felt so exciting, you know, to be in a place like that, surrounded by not just this kind of beautiful city, but also this vibrant music culture.
And obviously, that, as you said, that's when you started to play and you started to busk, which takes a bit of nerve, doesn't it?
Yeah, but you know, I was young, I had fun. I'd learned to play guitar. My sister had left. She'd gone to work one day and she left a book, Eagles Made Easy. And by the time she came back, I'd kind of learned it all. So I took to it, and I wasn't an Eagles fan. And then I started busking at Circular Quay, which is down by the harbour in Sydney.
Yeah.
And I could never remember the words to people's songs, so I started making them up, you know. But the minute somebody puts a penny or whatever it is, a dollar in the hat, I was kind of taken. That's it. I thought, right, this is the job for me, you know.
I have to ask, do you remember a particular Eagles song that went down well, or that was?
I didn't Take It Easy.
Yeah.
Which actually was written by Jackson Browne, I believe.
Well, I'm running down the road trying to loosen my load. I got 7 women on my mind. 4 that wanna own me, 2 that wanna stone me, 1 so she's a friend of mine. Take it easy, take it easy. Don't let the sound of your own wheels drive you crazy. Lighten up while you still can. Don't even try to understand. Just find a place to make your stand. Take it easy. Well, I'm standing on a corner in Winslow, Arizona, and such a fine sight to see. It's a girl, my lord, in a flatbed Ford, slowing down to take a look at me. Come on, baby, don't say baby. I gotta know if your sweet love is gonna save me. We may lose and we may win, but we will never be here again. So open up, I'm climbing in. So take it easy. Well, I'm running down the road trying to loosen my load. Got a world of trouble on my mind. Looking for a lover who won't blow my cover. She's so hard to find. Take it easy, take it easy. Don't let the sound of your own wheels make you crazy. Come on, baby, don't
Eagles with Take It Easy, a surefire way to fill up the guitar case with Australian dollars when our special guest, Dr. Robert, was busking at Circular Quay in Sydney as a young man, as a burgeoning musician. So did you have a sense, though, that you would have to leave Australia, much as you loved it and had become accustomed to it, if you were serious about becoming, a professional musician, that you would have to come back to the UK in order to make that happen?
Yeah. I mean, you're talking 1980, so well before the internet. And it was like, well, I'm starting to write songs. I want to be in a band. I'd made friends with some of the musicians, like, and they, there were bands like the Go-Betweens and the Larkin Clans and the Birthday Party and all that. And they were all going back to London. Oh, right, I should do that. I'll go back. So I came back to London in 1981 and I did the obvious thing, which is what everyone did, which was look for a band to join by looking in the back pages of Melody Maker,
And did the band come together fairly quickly?
It did. I answered an ad. It said angular guitarist wanted into Roxy, Bowie, things like that. I thought angular guitar. I wasn't sure if that was somebody that was into fishing or what they were talking about. But I went along to the. It was Jackson's Lane Community Centre in Highgate, and and that's where I met Neville, the sax player. They had a different singer then, Graham, and he had some songs that were very, very kind of Brian Ferry derivative. And I knew how to play that, but I started straight on sort of, I think about it now, I had a lot of fun. I was only 19, but just sort of like bringing my own songs in and starting to sing them. And I think Nev, the sax player, and I kind of bonded. And that's when we started to, to break out on our own. It was obvious that, because I was desperate to be the singer and the front man. And I think it was obvious that I was bringing something to that. I was bringing lots of songs. They were terrible, by the way, absolutely awful. But I was a trier, I wasn't going to give up. Because I had no idea, to be honest, Jackie, what the hell else I could do in life.
Right. So this was it. This was do or die.
Yeah. And you got to remember, it's 80. In those days, you could kind of sign on the dole. You could sort of have 2 or 3 years where they wouldn't send a drone around, sort of checking on you. So a lot of bands, I think, came out of that. It was a safety net, And I remember once we got Mick in, and I was very kind of draconian. I said, right, everybody give up their jobs. We're going to practice, 5 days a week. We're going to make it, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. They had belief in me, thank God, because it took a while. But that's what you had to do,
That single-mindedness. Were you sort of doing a particular circuit? Well, who would your peers have been around that time? It was such a musically rich period of time that extraordinary acts were beginning to emerge. So would there have been peers that we would come to know that you were kind of gigging, with, or before or after?
Well, I didn't, and we didn't know anybody. So it was really hard to get gigs in the very first place, So we would often just play gigs that make our bass player regret. I suppose there were bands that were coming through. I mean, I remember going to see The Sound of Young Scotland and it was Orange Juice and the Fire Engines and Aztec Camera.
Oh, yeah.
And Joseph Kay. And I really related to what they were doing. That seemed like something new to me, post-punk. I loved the kind of jangly guitars. It was obviously Edwin was a great writer and stuff. So I was really honing in on that. And obviously later on, a couple of years later, we toured with Lloyd Cole and stuff like that. So I suppose there was a kind of connection with that.
I treat my friends far too well. I'm up on the pavement. They roll down in the cell with their golden grants. And my IQ, they brought me down to size. I can tell you the blues. Louise is a girl. I know her well. She's up on the pavement. Yeah, she's a weather girl, and I'm staying up here, so I may be undone. She's inappropriate, but then she's much more fun. And when she smiles my way, my eyes go out in vain. She's got perfect skin. Shame on you, got no sense of grace. Shame on me. Just in case I might come to a conclusion, other than that which is absolutely necessary. Otherwise, if ever you see, she's got cheekbones like geometry and eyes like sin, and she's sexually like by cosmopolitan.
Lloyd Cole and the Commotions with Perfect Skin, a breakthrough hit for them in 1984, contemporaries and future tour mates of the Blow Monkeys. And we'll be back to carry on with their journey as our great conversation with Dr. Robert of the Blow Monkeys continues next on Greatest Hits Radio.
Greatest Hits Radio. This is Greatest Hits Radio.
Across the UK. Sound like this.
Welcome back to the great conversation with me, Jackie Brambles, and your good selves, and our special guest tonight, Dr. Robert of the Blow Monkeys. So before the break, Robert, you talked about coming back to London, which of course at that time was sort of the epicenter of punk and new wave music. So once you were back here as a young man and you teamed up with the people who would go on to become the Blow Monkeys with you, how did you guys get discovered? How did you get that big break?
We used to walk around the West End. I used to walk around with a guitar, and a cassette and knock on publishers' doors to try and get some studio time.
Right.
And eventually somebody gave me this guy called Mortargrate on Denmark Street, put me in a studio. And that was the first demo we made. And from that, things started to grow. And we got a residency at the Moonlight Club on West End Lane, Hampstead. And 3 Fridays. And by the third Friday, the record companies were starting to turn up and there was a kind of buzz because we got a review. But, I was writing all the time because I wasn't really sure what we were or what I was doing. It was just spewing out at me to try and find something,
Yeah.
So, but we got, that's where the record company interest came from. And they signed us. I got signed as a writer first in 83. And I think the album that they signed us on, we only one song maybe onto the actual album because I was writing so many that the thing was changing all the time. But I think there was something, and I don't quite know what it was. Couldn't put my finger on it, but and it wasn't necessarily the songs at that point or anything. But we were putting out something.
And within 18 months, couple of years, you had your first sort of chart breakthrough. Yeah,
we did one album, Live for a Generation, which didn't really do that well, but it got a lot of good reviews. And I think, we were on a major label, RCA. We were kind of like an indie act on a major label. And, but luckily they had belief in us. So they put us in for the second one. And Digging Your Scene sort of took off. It just, out of the blue. And I didn't think it was a single. And that shows how much I know. But it was one of those that kind of changed our lives because suddenly we were touring America and it was here everywhere, So that was a big life changer.
I just got your message, baby. It's a sight to see you fade away. The world is this feeling. Catch your breath and leave me reeling. It'll get you in the end. It's God's revenge. Oh, I know I should come clean, but I prefer to deceive. Every day I walk alone and pray that God won't see me. I know it's wrong, I know it's wrong. Tell me why. Is it I'm digging your scene? I know I'll die. You in a home to fill in. Oh, but I wouldn't call that living. I'm like a boy among men. I'm like a permanent friend. Well, I'd like to think that I was just myself again. Oh, tell me why. Is it I'm digging your scene? I know I'll die. sad to see you fade away. I'd like to think that I was just myself again. Now tell me why. Is it I'm digging your scene? I know I'll die, baby. Tell me why. Is it I'm digging your scene? I know I'll die.
That got to number 12 in 1986, the breakthrough single for the Blow Monkeys, Digging Your Scene. And can I say, I just loved playing that record in my very first year as a broadcaster. And I feel like it hasn't dated in 40 years. It still sounds glorious.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so with that chart success, of course, came Top of the Pops and overnight fame. So what was that experience like for you? You know, was it a dream come true and all that you hoped it would be? Or was it really just a bit weird?
A bit weird. Because I was living in Brixton at this point, and in a little flat above a record shop. And, you know, as the record company starts sending around flash cars, and I'm looking out the window going, "Pub, for God's sake, take it away, please." You know, and my life had changed a little bit. And I suppose part of me really wanted that. But, and I'm not going to deny that I didn't enjoy it. You know, I had a great time. But I think I wasn't prepared for the kind of image thing took over a little bit, but it was the 80s, you know, it was all that thing. And they put me on the front cover of all the records, you know, and they sort of photoshopped it. And, you know, for a little while there, I think people were getting the wrong message about what the band were like. But I went along with it and I enjoyed it. And it was, I mean, playing in America, I mean, we toured with Robert Palmer. And he was number one at the time with Addicted to Love.
Oh,
so
wow.
we played massive venues. And then we went off and did our own gigs. And then we did American Bandstand with Dick Clark and all that. And it was all quite surreal. And I was so overwhelmed and busy in Japan and all that as well, you know, that I don't think it sunk in until years later, really.
Yeah, I hear that often, that it's, you know, from the outside looking in, it looks like, oh my, you know, an amazingly exciting thing to happen. But actually, when you're in the sort of the center of that tornado, you're not actually having a chance to appreciate what's happening. You're just exhausted and being pushed from pillar to post.
Yeah, a little bit. But I was lucky that I had good friends around me. I've always had very, you know, strong kind of friendship group that are very close. And that keeps you on the straight and narrow. I think I wasn't, you know, I can see how it can be very seductive and you can lose the plot, you know. And so, but it was great. I mean, it was a vindication of everything that we're doing, that we could actually do this, you know, and it kind of gave us a career having that record. From that point on, we were kind of known. And so it changed everything. And I'm not going to pretend it wasn't fun. It was great fun.
And as you mentioned there, the friendships that were formed back then have lasted for such a long time. I mean, you recorded the new Blow Monkeys album, Birdsong, at Paul Weller's studio. And that's a friendship that goes way back, I think. I mean, you played on his brilliant Wildwood album, didn't you?
Yeah. Yeah, after the band split up and I moved out with a young family, we moved out, Michelle and I, to Oxfordshire initially. I mean, obviously I was really good friends with Paul and he was recording at the Manor, which was right next door to where I was living. So I would pop in there all the time and he'd say, "Go on, I'll pick that up, do that." I love playing bass, you know. So I played all over, I was on Changing Man and all those things, playing bass. So a lot of his first 3 albums. And he reciprocated, he played on a lot of my first early solo stuff, you know, just as friends really. It was never like a business deal. It was just hanging about, picking up an instrument and, oh, that sounds good, let's put it on, you know.
High tide, mid-afternoon, people fly by in the traffic's boom, knowing just where you're blowing, getting to where you should be going. Down, making you feel guilty about golden rain will bring you riches, all the the wild, wild wood. Now there's no justice. You've only yourself that you can trust in. And I say, high time, mid-afternoon. Oh, people.
The title track to Paul Weller's #2 album from 1993, Wildwood, which tonight's special guest Dr. Robert played on, amongst many other Weller albums, and vice versa, all rooted in a long friendship that flourishes to this day, as the Blow Monkeys' new album Birdsong was recorded at Paul's own studio. So we're just about out of time, Robert. Time for one final track, and we are looking to you, please, to choose it. Doesn't have to be an all-time favourite. That's too big an ask, too much pressure. But a particular song that you find yourself returning to often for whatever reason that you care to give us.
Yeah, okay. I'll go for Sam Cooke, A Change Is Gonna Come. Because I think it's the greatest record ever made. Because, first of all, it's Sam Cooke, who's hard to beat as a soul singer.
Yeah.
The context of the record, given that it was coming out at the time of the kind of civil rights struggle, and it's just such a fabulous performance and production that it's hard to beat.
I was born by the river in a little tent. Oh, and just like the river, I've been running ever since. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes it will. It's been too hard living, but I'm afraid to die. 'Cause I don't know what's up there beyond the sky. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes it will. Then I go to my brother and I say, brother, help me please. But he winds up knocking me back down on my knees. Oh, there've been times that I thought I could last for long.
From 1964, Sam Cooke and A Change Is Gonna Come, the final track of our great conversation, as chosen by our special guest, Dr. Robert. Let's just remind folks, Robert, that the new Blow Monkeys album, Birdsong, is out now, and the UK tour, which is a double-header with the Christians, kicks off early October. What a pleasure to have you back on the great conversation. Congrats on the album, all the best for the tour, and thank you, Robert, so much for taking the time.
Thank you, Jackie. I've really enjoyed it.
All right, mate. All the very best.
Cheers. Bye.
Dr. Robert of the Blow Monkeys, lovely chap. Tomorrow night, don't fear the Reaper, because Buck Dharma of Blue Oyster Cult will be here to protect us as our special guest on the great conversation. And in the meantime, this evening, stand by. We have Me Time for our mental health and your 5 epic 9 o'clock anthems up next on Greatest Hits Radio.
Greatest Hits Radio.
This is Greatest Hits Radio on FM, DAB, smart speaker, and now playing on Rayo.
Across the UK.
This is Greatest Hits Radio.